Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Expat.NEXUS LinkedIn Live event. I'm your host, Madalina Andrei, former Global Mobility Coordinator and currently Partnership Manager with Expat.global. For those of you not yet familiar with Expat.global, we are the first soft-enabled marketplace digital ecosystem in the global mobility sector. To put it simply, the first ecosystem that enables the direct relationship between local and regional experts, offering specialized services such as immigration, visa, taxation, social security, or destination services, and corporate clients in need of those services all around the world. This is our 24th live event from Expat.NEXUS series which has as main goal to become the place where we can share best practices in our industry, learn from each other, and most importantly, grow together. This episode focuses on expats in transition and their unseen challenges as moving across the world and attempting to adapt into a whole new culture and work environment may be an intimidating and sometimes life-changing experience. You might be disoriented, unsure if you're doing the correct thing or not, and it requires a lot of resilience, patience to navigate the new surroundings. And now it's a fact that international assignees they do need all the help that they can receive. Actually, we'll have some great questions and answers in this session, thanks to the valuable insights from our fantastic expert panel here. Before giving the floor to my guests, I would like to thank all the attendees for joining and watching this event. Please feel free to drop your comments, to drop by, say hello, ask your questions live. We'll do our best to incorporate them during the session. A very big thank you to all our panelists here for taking the time to join us. And I'll just make a round of introductions and I'll try to keep it short and in alphabetical order. Sunday Bean, Ambition Transformation in Any Transition. Hello, Sunday.
Hi, thank you for having me.
More than welcome. Sunday is an intercultural strategist, transformation facilitator, and a solution-oriented coach. She supports individuals and organizations as they traverse through life quakes and other major shifts, no matter where they are. For almost a decade now, her location-independent business has served individuals and world-class organizations from over 60 countries across 6 continents. And her mission is actually to help clients achieve ambitious goals while navigating transition. And she leads several online groups with thousands of members and hosts a very popular weekly podcast named In Transit with Sunday B. We have Veronica Cristianano. Hello, Veronica.
Hi, everyone.
A human resources manager, highly focused on translating business strategy into effective human resources practices and initiatives, which fully align with the company's group people strategy and contribute to business growth, profitability, and high levels of employee engagement. She's experienced in HR disciplines, including process and resource optimization, organizational design, change management, leadership, talent development, staffing, compensation, and coaching. She's fostering close partnership with the unit's leadership team, developing a deep understanding of the business and its strategic objectives and leverage the full breadth of the global HR function. Veronica is also providing functional leadership and expertise to the business of the company's global HR processes, programs, and policies. Angie Weinberger,
Hi, everyone.
hello, Angie. She's on a mission to bring the human touch back into the global mobility. She has lived and worked in Germany, UK, India, Australia before moving to Zurich. She worked in HR with a focus on global mobility in large global corporations for the past 25 years and knows well various other industries through her coaching and training mandates. Intercultural trainer since 2005. Angie has been certified as an intercultural coach in 2010. She's also a guest lecturer at various academic institutions and teaches global mobility and intercultural competencies and managing diversity and inclusion in Germany, Netherlands, France, and Switzerland. Thank you again to all of you for joining us. I think we can start. We can start now, and we begin with Veronica and a couple of questions on the HR perspective. So Veronica, what what would be the three main challenges, let's say, when managing expatriates from your perspective?
So, from my professional and personal experience, managing expatriates is quite a complex task, especially when we talk high numbers. So, any number above 100 comes with additional volume-related challenges. So, if I look back to my 17 years of experience with expatriates, I would say that cross-cultural adjustment is maybe one of the most important challenges. And this is a degree to which an expatriate is psychologically comfortable with various aspects of the host country's culture. And this is why the companies usually provide cultural adjustment training, and this is to build cross-cultural competencies. This refers to the ability of our expatriate colleagues to let's say work and to live normally in Romania or in any other country, which is a different cultural context. And here, I think it's important to think about, how we do certain things. And we usually answer questions such as what is appropriate or what is not appropriate to do. I don't know, on Easter, for example, if we take very simple things such as, holidays, or how do I engage in community, or how do I make a compliment, or how do I voice out my dissatisfaction. So quite simple things, but which are important according to the culture the expatriate is jumping in. Secondly, I'm thinking of the language barrier. This is not such a big challenge. It's a smaller challenge, but still, everyone uses English, and we all make efforts to just to communicate accurately. And I would say that on the business level is not everything works out normally and smoothly. It is true, that sometimes the English language coming out with a Chinese accent, for example, may be difficult to understand at the beginning, but this improves after the adjustment period. Um, on the personal level, I think it's important to avoid any misunderstandings and to make sure, that people will receive the same. Their needs would be tackled. The need of consideration, their need for respect, their need for understanding as foreigners in a new country. And at the same time, if we are talking volume, I think another challenge is worth mentioning is the expatriate administration and organization. And it is important to have clear rules and follow-up procedures to ensure full legal compliance, which in some countries for citizens, for example, for non-EU citizens, is quite important. Yes, there are certain milestones that need to be observed both before and after the work permit is issued. This would be in a nutshell the three challenges.
Thank you very much, Veronica. So we're talking about cross-cultural adjustment, language barriers, and the expatriate administration from an organizational point of view, let's say. I will continue with you, Veronica, regarding the planning stage, right? Because everything starts with planning. What should global mobility or HR department have in mind when they need to plan an international assignment? What would be the main points that should be taken into account when assessing the best type of assignment and the best potential candidates?
Well, that's a good question. In my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I think it's important to have in mind the outcome of the job to be performed by the expatriates, and of course the skills it takes to get there. The next step would be to map the people with the right skills in the right type of assignments and in the right geography, because this is also and maybe also relevant. And if we talk, in different companies about how different positions, such as highly specialized positions, it can be an engineer, it can be a product manager, It can be certain roles, more in the administration area. It can be a general manager. It's important that the persons with the right skills are assigned to these roles. So not necessarily, for example, if we're talking about the GM, we would expect that person would have, a track of performance in this respect, experience and recognition, and of course a proper preparation in advance. So, besides the technical skills, we value cultural intelligence, cultural effectiveness, and the language skills.
Thank you. That was exactly one of the questions I wanted to ask you. If the technical skills are actually enough to guarantee a successful assignment, right?
Yes, the answer is that no, they are not enough. It's always more than that. It cannot be only the technical skills for any type of position. Not only when we talk about assignments, but only when we talk about regular job. But especially when we talk about expatriate assignments, the ability to adapt across culture and the ability to interact and communicate with the host nationals are very valuable abilities.
Thank you very much, Veronica, for sharing this with us. We have a lot of people joining in. Thank you everybody for watching us from various parts of the world, actually. So we have quite an international click here, right? I guess I will move forward with Sunday, thinking about expatriates themselves and the way they should prepare for an assignment, right? I I guess they should be prepared before taking this leap. I don't know, emotionally, psychologically. How can they exactly prepare for that leap in their life? Can you make like I don't know, top five, let's say, of things they need to consider from your perspective?
Perfect. It really ties to the title of this of unseen challenges. I think we do know that there are language challenges, cultural differences, the logistics that have to be overcome. But what, thanks to over a decade of doing the work, I see what is behind the scenes and the challenges that people bring that they don't necessarily articulate to their organization or to HR because they don't want to be seen as a non-resilient family, as problematic or red flagged, right? So over a decade, I have asked myself this question: what are the things that we need to do? And instead of a checklist, I look at it like pillars. There are 4 pillars to really making the most of it. And if we focus on those pillars, not just before we go, but our entire assignment, it will truly enhance your experience, your performance for the organization, for yourself, and if you have an accompanying family. And they're quite simple but powerful. And the first one is what most people think about is how do I adapt as quickly and painlessly as possible? And that's where people do think about culture and language. But what I think people miss out on is how painlessly. So what can I do to make my life easier? How can I make this transition better? And the other pillar is how do I expedite my success? And I think in the reality of preparing for a move, you are overwhelmed with logistics. You have emotions happening at home with your partner who has agreed reluctantly to go, or maybe you're wondering if you can take on the challenge that you've been given. How do we focus on expediting our success? And usually it could be as simple as reaching out to people who've done this before or have done it ahead of you and learning what were their missteps and success strategies. But we get so caught in this tunnel that we don't even think about that. Another thing that I think, there's 2 other things that people often forget about is how do I truly maintain the connections that are meaningful? And that is not just the people that you're leaving back home, but creating relationships with people in your organization and in the local community before you even get there so you can have a soft landing. And also maintain connections with those who have come with you, because when you're in a new environment and everybody is dealing with different levels of culture or language challenge or stress levels, it's so easy for those connections to break apart, and now we're in big trouble. And then the last one would be, this is my favorite and the one most overlooked, is to cherish the experience, right? I literally received an email with 14 attachments when we got our assignment to the next place. And every attachment has 37 pages of things that we have to fill out, right? It is easy to forget to cherish the experience, but there's usually a part inside the individual that is yearning for growth, for a challenge, and to see something new. And if we forget about that, we miss out on some of the best parts of it. And then you asked the last tip for the fifth thing. I would remind people, here's the thing. This is an ongoing journey. So a lot of organizations forget about supporting the expat once they land, but actually we got this. It gets harder once you're there for 6 months or 12 months. And that's where I think people forget to support. And what I've seen in my work, people do need the support the most.
Amazing, amazing, Sunday. I was thinking just now. Actually, I was thinking about setting expectations. Is this something they should be considering? Managing their own expectations, the expectations they have at home, right? Thinking about the fact that they will not be able to replicate entirely their lives and their experiences at home with the ones in the new destination. I'm thinking, for example, now about an example I encountered a couple of years ago. It was, I think, 7 years ago, with an expatriate coming to Bucharest, and they were looking for a pet hospital. No, sorry, a pet hotel. Sorry, a pet hotel, right? 7 years ago, we only had one pet hotel, yeah, and he couldn't believe it, for him not being able to choose between the pet hotels, it was a pain, So yeah, what do you say about that? Managing your own expectations.
Critical. And I think this is where there's the overlap of the organization and the individual. You could liaise with people who've already been there. And one of the things that I've noticed is around how long does it take to get electricity? How long does it take to get your internet? How long does it take to get a visa for your partner to work? How long does it take to learn a language? For some reason, everybody thinks it only takes you 1 year to learn a language. But if you're working in an international company and the language is English, you're not learning the local language, right? How long does it take to make friends? These are things that people don't even think to ask, right?
Yeah.
So this is our responsibility, I think, as experienced expats and those who are embedded in the organizations to understand the realities also at the local destination. When I moved to West Africa, expectations are very different from when I moved to South Africa because our infrastructure is different, the politics is different, etc. So there is no one recipe for moving abroad because it depends on your context, who you are, what your identity is, what's a historical context. There's so many complex layers. If one person had a great experience, doesn't mean you are going to, because you have a very different multi-layered experience than they have.
Yeah, you mentioned a bit earlier cherishing the experience, right? But we as humans, we do have this tendency to make comparisons, right? Even if we don't want it, we do make comparisons, and we compare what we have at home with what we have here in the new destination. And I guess, tell me if I'm wrong, that might be a source of dissatisfaction and unhappiness. How can people pass over this comparison?
So I've been there. I've done it. I'm guilty of it as well. But what I encourage my clients to do is not focus on comparisons like better or worse, focus on your needs and your values. So what is it that I need, or what is it that I value? And it could be something like, I don't like this food here, right? Well, instead of they don't have great who knows what dish, it's more like, hey, I value nutrition. So what can I do that it's nutritious here? Or I value freedom. I value movement, whatever it is. You have to let go of those things and focus on your needs and values. And the good fun thing about that is that when you do have an opportunity to return back to where those things are great, you get to really savor it. And that goes back to cherishing the experience. I have lived in contexts where, I've been invited to only engage in, let's say, local food, local options, because there just wasn't other stuff. And I got to discover new things, right? It wasn't less than, it was something different. And if you have that attitude, then you're really able to create new memories and new experiences and embed yourself into the new context in a totally different way.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Sunday. Things are getting a bit more complicated because I was under the impression that we were living in a VUCA world, but now we have a new acronym coming up. Well, it's new for me at least. I heard it a couple of months ago, but I had no idea what it meant. So Angie, we're talking about BANI words, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want me to translate it?
Please do. What is BANI word, and well, what does it mean exactly? And I guess it puts an extra pressure on the already existing pressure of a transition to another country, right?
Yeah. So when we look at this unprecedented times, I've heard this word a lot this week at an event. We need to think about, okay, what does that BANI stand for? So it stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And it's basically next level to VUCA, which was already very difficult to grasp at certain stages. So if you think about what expats are experiencing in the last 2 or 3 years, a pandemic. Now we are just slightly getting out of this. Then we have a war starting in Europe. And the next thing you know is we have people in Shanghai feeling like they're starving. So, we are not even getting out of a crisis anymore. We jump from one crisis to the next. And expats are always a bit more vulnerable than other employees because they lack the network that you have as a local. They lack the support. They sometimes don't even understand like emergency numbers, emergency topics. So if one of these emergency breaks down over them in the midst of taking care or trying to get adjusted to a new job, in the midst of trying to settle your kids in a school, the feeling of helplessness and overwhelm is quite significantly higher than what we see with local staff, and it's even hard for local people to deal with those topics. And then Sunday, you mentioned there's this phase where global mobility usually focuses on helping people transition to the new location, the in-house global mobility. And we all know, and hi there outside to my friends who are looking here on the screen, I recognize a few of you. We all know we're constantly overworked in global mobility. We constantly have to fight for our resources. We fight for our FTEs. And as soon as someone lands in a location, we're like, okay, now next one. Yeah. So we want to maybe do more from a global mobility perspective, but it's almost impossible because, you're constantly even trying to catch up with, what you need to do. We have a geopolitical environment that has become a lot more difficult to grasp. Immigration rules, Veronica, you mentioned it. There's a part that has become a lot more difficult. I mean, look at Brexit, look at local labor markets, how they're like closing up, how more and more we need administration to even place somebody in a country. And then on the other hand, we know that there's what Sunday you refer to, I call this the communication hole. Yeah, so in the middle of the transition process, when the expats and their spouse and their children, they go through the valley of tears. Yeah, so when they're in the middle of the cultural transition, where it is hard, where it's difficult, we leave them alone. And we think, now you're ready to run, now you're ready to perform. But that's not true. We should actually take care of them even more during that phase.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Engine. And I think the next question relates to what you were saying, because I wanted to ask what would be the stages of a transition process, right? To get into a bit more specific details about the stages. You mentioned one of the stages, but perhaps you can tell us more about the entire process.
Yes. So from an intercultural perspective, this research isn't new. We all have heard of culture shock and culture shock curves. They have different letters, different acronyms. Again, U curve, J curve, W curve. All of the theory originally was based on Elizabeth Kübler-Ross theories of what happens when you lose a loved one. Yeah, so her book on death and dying actually that actually started the shock idea, and the shock idea then translated into the culture shock idea. The word is not the best term, so we prefer to speak of cultural adjustment. Because it is a psychological process of adjustment, similar to what you go through when you move to another city, when you move into a job, when you go through a life transition, such as menopause, for example. Yeah, so it's a similar process. It is not exactly the same as a shock reaction. Yeah. However, most people actually know this under culture shock. However, now you asked what the phases are. We've all been there. We've seen the honeymoon phase in the beginning. We're all excited. It's, like when we met a new partner, we're in love with the country. When I moved to Switzerland, I was like, oh my God, these mountains, they're so beautiful. Yeah, but then after like 3 to 4 weeks, the novelty wears off. And then we start missing the things we used to have. And then we probably get a bit
making comparisons.
We start making comparisons, but we also get more close to reality. And then usually, we don't like the people in the host country anymore. We're suddenly annoyed that the trains are always on time and that we miss them constantly. And that's a luxury problem, obviously. But there are also other things that then just maybe become more apparent. Like, for example, a lot of women moving to Switzerland, professional women, this is the phase where they realize, oh my goodness, I'm not recognized here as a professional woman. Nobody knows men don't know how to deal with me because they're not used to having women at my level. And then, suddenly you have resistance that you never encountered of it. However, we have to just understand it also really depends on what Sandy said. It depends on your psychological prehistory. It depends on your personal story. It depends on the country, on your expectation. Also, there's research that shows, if you had maybe intercultural training, or if you have previous experience, previous culture shock experience, previous transition experience, this process might go a bit faster. So there are various factors, and it's really hard to predict. But the worst thing, Madalina, is there are a lot of people that have never heard of this. So this was something I had to understand as a coach, that even though for me this was the most normal topic to discuss, many clients, they don't know about this. They come from different backgrounds, professional backgrounds, and they think something is wrong with them. So here I think we as coaches, as supporters, we can really help people just to explain that this is a normal process, what is going on, and maybe just be a sounding board, someone who listens to them. Or like Sunday, said, offer not only support, but also offer tangible ideas, what you can do in such a situation. And that's why it's really important, because the emotional adjustment doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at year 1. For example, in Switzerland, I notice expats sometimes after 2 years, after 5 years, they go through another dip, because there's it's like another phase where, they adjust more, or suddenly they move out of the expat bubble. Yeah. So, and then they move into the real life Switzerland, and suddenly they notice, I don't have any friends because all my expats friends have left. So, the cultural adjustment, the mood swings, they don't stop.
No, they never stop. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Angie, very much. I was wondering, Sunday, if the transition process is different from the one is different between what the working expatriate is actually feeling and living, and one experienced by their accompanying partners or spouses.
Right.
Are we talking about different, different stages, different challenges, and I'm also thinking about different generation of expats might feel different things.
Right. So I want to just do something that's very unpopular and make something even more complex, because that is actually the reality that we navigate. And that is what the research reflects. So when we are in this process of adaptation that Angie was talking about, we also need to think about our own context, right? Like what's going on politically. How does that match my level of navigating uncertainty? So the context intersects with our own intercultural competencies, right? And then we have our personality. Are we someone who has high cultural empathy, or are you someone who's emotionally stable or not? And then we have, how much contact do we have? Do I have a lot of contact with locals, or do I have none at all? And so I'm not going to say there's this group and they have it like this, and there's that group and they have it like that, because all of those factors interact together. But a very quick example is, one example would be, one partner goes to work and they go to work and it literally smells like their country. It looks like their country, and everybody talks like in their country. And the other partner goes to the market and it doesn't look like their country. It doesn't smell like their country, and they don't talk like their country. So the level of stress is very different, right? So that's one example that we are in the same country, but our experiences are very different. The other thing I think it's important, and we cannot underestimate this, is often the accompanying partner has given up a professional role and an embedded community to support the other partner. And they say yes for a lot of reasons. And the impact that that has on identity is not to be underestimated. And what I see with accompanying partners, that they think they're going for adventure and to support their loved ones, but when they get there, they are in this massive vacuum, a loss of purpose and meaning. And we are biologically programmed for purpose. Weak sense of purpose is as unhealthy as smoking, right? Or being sedentary. Biologically, this is real. This isn't somebody doesn't have a positive attitude. This is being human. So when our sense of purpose and meaning is ripped away from us, it has a huge impact. And why should the organization care? Because there is spillover and crossover. When there's trouble at home, there's trouble at the office, right? And if there's trouble at the office, there's trouble at home. And we know that repatriation or early repatriation is crazy expensive. And this is why I think it's so important. This is my little soapbox. Why we need to support people just in time while they are in that process, because a little bit of an ounce of prevention, right, is this, saving the pound of cure. And I just have seen it too long. I've seen it from too many organizations, from the foreign service. I've seen it from corporate. I've seen it from missionary families, all of it, and love pats even. And I understand that resources are limited, but we can't keep looking away from that problem. And often the accompanying partner has higher education or even higher qualifications than the one who accepts the assignment abroad. And that can then lead to lifelong impact on the relationship.
Amazing. Thank you, Sunday. Tracy mentioned that. Yeah, exactly. That's why spouse and partner assistance is so very important, and not just a nice to have in company global mobility policies. Hello, Tracy. Lovely to see you here. So Veronica, I'm switching to you to continue Sunday's idea. So in HR Global Mobility Department, we can put in place various processes, right, that can support expat employees settle in their new lives abroad, and which can actually lead to a better expatriate experience. What would be the three main areas to consider when devising such processes?
I will attend your question immediately, Madalina. I just want to say thank you to both Sunday and Angie for their wonderful perspectives and for this, deep dive into the anatomy of global mobility and what happens actually into the expatriates' lives, personal lives, and families. I think it's very important to have this on the table, and it's important for us as HR professionals to be aware and to support, from our perspectives as well. Of course, we always have the financial constraints and different other constraints. However, I'm sure there are ways. I know there are ways. I think we should also rely on each other, to support from different perspectives. Now, getting back to your question, Madalina, uh, what we are doing, and I think what is important for HR to do, is to have a preparation, a very clear step in which the expatriates are getting familiar with the country and the role, have this role introduction before relocation. Here, getting feedback from their peers, getting feedback from people they know, from their acquaintances in the host country, I think is very, very important. And I've seen this happening in practice versus other situations where this is not happening, and the difference is huge. A second step would be the cultural integration training, or the intercultural training. This is a never-ending, education. You cannot say that you have,
One day,
day,
that's it.
or
Yeah.
1 day, or 2 days. Or no, this is a constant process. This is something which is always ongoing, and I think this is an aspect which we should not forget and remember all the time, and allow the expatriates to take, not burden them with tasks and push them into an office and that's it. And the third step would be the constant integration support, which is provided by dedicated expat management role. It can be in HR, it can be outside HR. But this is very important, not only for the expatriates and not only for the first 3 months, but at least for the first year, and applicable to the families as well. And here I'm thinking, banking support. How do I open a bank account? Which is my bank here? How do I get paid? Which are the schools for the children? How do I pay the taxes? What is the healthcare system? What's the best option for me, for my family? What is the social network? And Sunday, I think, was mentioning the partners and the children should also be helped to be integrated into community. What are the clubs, the organizations that can integrate the spouses, especially but not only the highly educated ones. So this would be, let's say, the top three, not necessarily how to say processes, but steps which would support the expats better integrate together with their families.
Yeah. What about Veronica? Well, sometimes people do not necessarily want to move internationally, right? They accept certain assignments because of different reasons, but not necessarily because they want it. Do you believe that having in place, for example, incentivizing schemes that would attract and convince the right employees to relocate would be a good practice. I imagine if the right employees relocate in the right locations, the adjustment and the I don't know, it would be easier, rather than expatriates that are unwillingly to move, but they have to move because of the company policies. What should the HR global mobility policy practitioners take into account?
Well, in my humble opinion, nobody should move if they don't want to do that. So I think, this is this is something which we must respect, especially if the decision, is well grounded and is unshakable. In my experience, I've never insisted, on people taking steps which they were not willing to take, and I think that was, in the most cases, a good call. However, if there is room for negotiation, then the process should focus on the perceived value of the relocation. And this is different for each individual. Because human motivation cannot be managed by a universal tool or scheme, because it is dynamic and it's volatile. Today, right now, in this moment, in this place, I want something and I'm motivated by certain factors. But in a week time, in a year time, things will change. And I think this is one common mistake which is made by companies, having these very unflexible schemes and believing that it's just one size fit all motivation that would, make everything run smoothly. It's in reality, it's not happening. So getting back to your idea, if an incentive scheme would be in place, I think it would be important to allow a certain degree of flexibility and to incorporate elements that support quality of life, that support spouse and children, personal and professional growth. Of course, the monetary factor, but I would not put that, in the front, because we talk about money too often, too much. We make everything or almost everything about the money. And as your distinguished guests today mentioned, there are so many unseen challenges and so many things that are happening behind that we cannot ignore and we should not ignore.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Continuing the adaptation idea, getting back to Angie and the adaptation phase to a new business and a new culture, what would be just a couple of recommendations that you would have on how this
Yeah.
is faster and smoother?
Yeah, and I wanted to also say one word, a few words on what Veronica just alluded to, because we have a trend in the global mobility world. It's called core flex, and I think of it like a box of chocolates. So if you really get to know the family well as a global mobility manager, and you understand what all the diversity Sunday mentioned, all the things that they might not tell everybody in HR, but maybe tell you as their person of trust, then I think you can also offer them this box of chocolates in terms of the services that they actually need. Not just throw money at them, because this is, these times have long gone. I mean, I think we lost the big packages in the financial crisis. And I think we're always trying to optimize the support that we can give. But I think what we could get better at is to look at the individual family system and how we can help the individual family system from a global mobility perspective. And there are tools out there to support this, but to be honest, I mean, a good Excel sheet will do as well. Yeah, so you don't have to buy something expensive just to be more flexible. You can also be flexible on a piece of paper. And the other thing that you asked about, what can an expat and the expat partner do in terms of adjustment? I think, Sunday, you mentioned it, everybody's different. people are diverse, and people have different histories, and people have different ways to deal with learning and with challenges and with their own journey. For me personally, what works the best when I feel that a lot of things come my way, for me, what works best are checklists. So checklists for the tasks, and a coach or someone to guide you through when you feel down or when you feel blocked. So I think, to be honest, checklist and a coach, that's all you need. And obviously perseverance and resilience and all of these, let's say, performance items that you would expect in somebody who's selected for an expat assignment. And we haven't really touched on the core issue here. I mean, I think we alluded to it. Veronica, you said it, don't send anyone who doesn't want to go. But we can't also, as global mobility managers, just send anybody. Yeah. So, and one of the issues is that often global mobilities is not really involved in that kind of a decision. But I think we need to also get better globally in all companies at choosing the right people to go on assignment, being more diverse in the people that we send on assignment, sending more women, sending more diverse groups out. That's one thing, but I also think we need to look at the criteria for the selection, because this is hardly really done well. And if you have somebody who's not a great performer, or he's, let's say, an average performer in the home country, you can bet that once they go through the adjustment process, their performance is not going to rise. So I think that's also important to remember, that we deal with the diversity of people, but we also have to make sure that we send the right people when we look at this from a corporate perspective. When we look at this from the individual's perspective, from the employee perspective, one of the things I sometimes hear, especially from younger expats, is this need to go away from their current situation. And I think I can blame myself of once or twice having done the same. Yeah, so the idea that if I go somewhere else, things will get better, which is also not the greatest idea to start an international assignment. So that's also why I think somebody like Sunday or myself or Veronica, we should be involved in those kind of decisions. We should really assess the people for, let's say, fitness for an international assignment, especially with unprecedented challenges that we mentioned.
You mentioned, thank you, Angie, very much. You mentioned at some point earlier that culture shock, okay, is not exactly the best term to describe, and we should actually use cultural adjustment, let's say, cultural adjustment. Sunday, we all, well, in this industry at least, we all heard the phrase, right? We know expatriates. A lot of expatriates have never heard of it. But what would be the symptoms of this culture? Let's call it shock, because
I'm going to really resist culture shock for a second, just because of, I mean, the term comes from 1960 from Oberg. It meant like a process of loss of identity and adjustment. And it feels temporary. So I'm really gonna resist that, because what we know from research in the last 40, 50, 60 years is that I would call it intercultural competence development and maintenance. And here's really important why I add that. You can be interculturally competent in one area, and when you move, you are incompetent in another area. Not because you've lost something, it's because your context has changed. So, for example, in Switzerland, my intercultural competence was high because I spoke fluent German. I had, very embedded in the network. Put me in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, and now my competence is down because I have changed context. I haven't changed as a person. My French competency doesn't compare to my German. I don't understand, more. Do I understand the local culture? So I want to make sure that we frame it into what we know now about it. And what happens, and this is why it goes back to this Banny world. You can have someone who is very high, a high performer, interculturally competent, and then something happens something happens. Maybe their partner has a crisis, or a family member dies, or their sister has a baby abroad, and now they feel like they're too far away. And then this is from my research with Dr. Chris Ashenson, they swing on the pendulum, they move, their French stays the same, their cultural know-how stays the same, but there's something inside of them emotionally and cognitively and even behaviorally that shifts because something happened. When things come out on the outside, those are magnets that pull us on the other side. And so, for example, if I'm interculturally competent and I love my life, let's say in Ouagadougou, and then all of a sudden I'm exhausted because I've been grieving over a loss of someone. Now, when I'm in traffic, I'm like, oh, they are bad drivers. They don't know where they're going, right? What? Like, how did that happen? Because now my resilience is down, right? So I would say, that's a long way to answer. If you're feeling symptoms, it's that suddenly you are feeling less resilient. Your mindset has shifted. You've gone from looking at, the ideal would be, hey, we're similar and we're different, right? But now all of a sudden they are all like that, right? And we've swung energetically in our thoughts, emotionally, even in our behaviors. Then you have to pay attention. And what you look at from my work with the intercultural pendulum, we look for anchors. What do I need to do to create more balance again? Do I need to go for a run? Do I need to sleep tomorrow? Do I need to change my alcohol consumption? Do I need to be in community with people? And this goes back to Angie's point of resilience is built in relationship with other people, right? You need to build your capacity in relationship with others, and especially others who understand. So I really feel like in this banny world, right, where things are volatile, even our top performers don't even know who they are now because they've never been in this situation before. We've never had to hold an economic crisis, a global pandemic, racial reckoning, environmental crisis, and then maybe like I'm having problems at home, or maybe my teen is not nice, or who knows, maybe I'm going through menopause. It's like we're going through so many transitions at one time that we need to, and it goes back to this, we need to support the human, just the human, right? And I think we need to revisit our strategies. What has worked in global mobility for 5-10 years? New game, right? New game. We need to look at things in new ways. And I think that's this, going back to Angie's thing about the banning world, game over on the old ways. Like, we need to find creative ways. And I know it is in connection with other people.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Sunday. We have a question from Clivia. Hello, Clivia. Lovely to see you here. For those who do not get to have support via a coach, right? What can a DSP consultant do, right, to support the expatriate coming over? Who wants to take this question?
Can I?
Please.
I think, hi, Clivia. Nice to see you here. I think this is a great question. And I think, one of the first ideas I would have that come to my mind, you can everybody, every one of us, everyone on this call, we can practice a bit of listening skills. And we can practice our compassionate skills and really take a bit more time. Yes, we're all under pressure, but sometimes 5 minutes of listening to the needs of an expat or an expat partner make a huge difference. We can be we can be first responders. We can all be first responders. We can say, I hear you. I hear what's going on. I know someone who can help you, and we can connect them to the support system that they will need in that situation. I think we can all do our part here, even if there's not an official coaching paid by the company. Maybe then we could suggest, could we maybe have a bit less tech support? and do some other things instead. Yeah. Everybody always thinks about tech support. Yeah, sorry, guys. We all know we have to pay taxes. But there are a lot of things that are so much more important right now. The human support, that's what's needed.
Thanks a lot, Angie. Thanks a lot. Sunday, we have a question. Tracy is asking about the book that you mentioned about the anchor. Can you please repeat the name of the book, please?
Okay, so there's this is some research that's been published in 2019 around the intercultural pendulum, developing intercultural competence and maintenance. But you can also go to podcasts and listen to it in a more general way and get guides. So I can put the link in our feed afterwards on where you can get the guide on the anchors and the magnets. And other podcasts that are more accessible than a research article. But Chris Ashison from Purdue University has co-authored that with me back in 2019. It's an ongoing project where we're looking at how intercultural competence and maintenance happens in real life that has been largely ignored.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. We can move forward. Obviously, our time is close to being over. I expected this, but I think if you can, we can stay a couple of minutes just for one question more. So, Veronica, what should mobility professionals consider when they have to keep the transferees happy and productive at the same time with keeping the costs low, right? How do you juggle? How do you juggle with challenges? Because it's not easy to have them both.
It's not easy to have them both. Maybe we cannot have them both always. However, I like what Sunday said about revisiting the strategies and new game. It's a new game in HR as well. I think it's a new game in all the functions. So again, there is no one size fits all solution for that, and I think it's important to have a general scheme with flexible items and job grade clusters, for example, or other indicator of significance. And this enables the company to place focus in the most important areas at different moments in time, because not all the roles have the same significance, and the moment in time can be different. This year we can focus on certain positions. In 6 months' time, we can focus on different things. So, for example, board positions and specialist positions belong to different job grade clusters, and the relocation package and the integration strategy can include items of different values. For example, accommodation subsidy, or small things which we can do in terms of costs, paying at the same time attention to every detail. The new game would have to be played in a more flexible way, in my opinion, in a more considerate way, and not in such a, how to say, stiff manner, take it or leave it approach.
Excellent. Thank you, Veronica. We talked about families at some point, and I would like to ask Angie, has the family structure transformed over the years? What makes a family of expats nowadays?
Yes, the family structure has changed, and it's, I think, as diverse as our general population, which sometimes poses a challenge, especially in immigration. However, I think we're also in the global mobility world getting very creative in finding good solutions. So I welcome the diversity. I find it fantastic. I love it when I have very diverse people to deal with. And we have all sorts of family constructs. I recently learned that the word patchwork family is not really known all over the world. So in Germany, it's very well known. So, for example, you have married second time, you have stepchildren, or you took in children. So lots of different constructs of how the family relates to each other. But also we have same-sex couples, we have same-sex couples with children. We have a lot of different needs in the global mobility world. And I also think we often manage to send people on assignment despite all the ideas and stereotypes. So yes, I think this is something we can truly say, with the right preparation, that should never hold anybody back. Yeah, and I think the biggest issue that we often have is that the manager of the person who goes on assignment has some assumptions that might not be true. So also one thing we can address in companies as managers is to really find out if a person would be interested in going on an assignment before we assume, oh, it's not possible because they just had a baby or because they have an elderly parent or an elderly relative to take care of. There are situations where elderly parents can come on assignment with you. It's just a matter of being flexible. So yes, family structures have definitely changed.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Angie. And I think we will conclude with Sunday, thinking about factoring in the kids, right? What would be the main challenges families with kids are facing, and how these challenges should be best handled?
This question depends on the family, right? We have family members who have children with special needs, family members who have very small children and need maybe more urgent medical care. So you have to look at, is there sufficient medical care in an area? Or you have, growing kids who are in teenage and need more independence. And if you have a high security risk area where their independence is limited, then you've got problems. So I think what's really important when you talk about the relationship with HR and the organization is also to do some thinking. When they said yes 4 years ago, their family is in a very different space. So it's, again, there's a new context. Moving an 8-year-old is very different from moving a 12-year-old, because that's when the relationship with the friends becomes more important than the relationship with the parents, right? And that is what I want to just urge people. And I think that was something that Veronica also said, is that we are dynamic, complex people, and it isn't lock and load, right? What we said yes to 4 years ago is maybe different than we'll say yes to in another 4 years. And that's why I think, again, I think this is something we all are unified by, is that human element is what will help impact the quality of our work beyond fancy tracking systems, right? Just understanding, hey, maybe they split up, maybe they, their family is going in different directions, whatever is happening, that you have that relationship. And then once you know what is, you're much better positioned to support them for where they want to go in the next 2 to 4 years.
Super. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this wraps up our session. It's been great. I'm sure the audience has found it extremely interesting. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us, for the great insights that you have shared with us. Thank you all out there for watching us and for being here. In case you need further expert advice or support, or you have any questions, please reach out to my guests directly. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. Meanwhile, please follow our Expat Global pages on LinkedIn and YouTube to get updates on our upcoming live events. Have a great evening and a happy Easter to all of you who celebrate Easter this weekend. Goodbye.